Let me call the August 4th, 2020 Stillwater Planning Commission meeting to order. Let's do a roll call.
Mr. Brickert?
Present.
Mr. Rickelman?
Here.
Mr. Shanahan?
Present.
Mrs. Durham? Here. Mr. Allred?
Here.
Thank you. Let's go to item 2A, short-term rental, STR 0038, review of applicant from Ashley and Sky Cooley for a short-term rental property at 1022 South Fairfield Drive in the residential single-family small lot with planned development overlay. This has been withdrawn from our agenda. Since it's been withdrawn, we will move to item 3A. 3A, text amendment 20-01 to Chapter 23, Land Development Code, Article XII 13, Overlay District, Division 2, Special Purpose Overlay District, amending regulations for Section 23-270, regulations, Sections 23-273, Development Standards, and Section 23-274, duration of designation. Staff presentation.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My apologies. We keep getting muted here. So this is a text amendment to the Special Purpose Overlay District. Right now, the way that part of the Land Development Code is structured, it applies only to an area within a designated business improvement district. This amendment changes that and transforms it so it can be a little bit more useful without the BID designation. That it was originally created to work with downtown, and this allows that to continue with even if that BID is not in place. As you can see on the slide here, it designates certain blocks that it applies to. Other blocks can be added by action of council if they desire to do that. This is one of the sections that the amendment would apply to. This is the strip, so portions of Washington Street, essentially from 5th to University. And this is the other area that it would apply to. So you can see sections of Main as well as adjacent cross streets. So 7th, 8th, and 9th. And the idea is that this allows additional economic options for bars, restaurants in these areas. At the present time, the ordinance the Land Development Code under the Special Purpose Overlay District allows for sidewalk dining with a permit and site plan and approval by the city. This would expand that to allow what we call street eateries. And the idea of that, as I go through the pictorial examples in the next couple of slides, hopefully will be pretty clear, but it's designed to allow restaurants and bars to use parking stalls that are leased from the city through a permit process to expand additional dining and seating options for patrons. And the idea behind this is to just give them some extra flexibility as they try and stay open and maintain distancing requirements. As I mentioned, currently allow sidewalk dining in the overlay district. It is very specific. We're trying to open this up a little bit to allow some additional flexibility and economic options for businesses. And so here's some examples. And the examples run the gamut across the country from very basic to very elaborate. The slide that you see in the circle here with the white background is actually in Bricktown and OKC. That is probably the closest example geographically. It's been there. It was first established in 2016, I think, as an idea and a concept to try. The other examples are a little bit more elaborate. And one of the things I want to point out that we mentioned in the ordinance here in the text is that it has to be ADA accessible. So if a business owner were to lease a stall or two from the city out in front of their restaurant, they would have to make sure that there's ADA accessibility. And you'll notice in these examples, it's fairly flat and even with the curb. So a wheelchair can get, or a stroller can get across easily from pavement to parklet dining. These are just more open seating options. You can see tables in this example. And they just put up some barriers and then tables. And so it can be that simple if a restaurant or bar wants to do that. These are just more of just open seating where there hasn't been any barriers. The ordinance that we've put together calls for some type of delineation. So you have to do something in some fashion to really carve off those stalls and block them from traffic. And you can see some other cases here where there's additional landscaping and work that's done to help incorporate the sidewalk and really provide some type of physical barrier. In this example that's being built, you can see the evenness with the sidewalk, but some other options just to help kind of really provide some separation and privacy. And then here's another example. This one has, you can see even reflectors, so they've put some additional thought in for safety, flush with the sidewalk, and then put some landscaping pots in front just to help provide additional safety barriers. So here's the text, some of the text change that we've put together, and this is in your packet. Right now, we're trying to, again, allow this in specific blocks. And again, council can add other blocks in the community if they deem it necessary or desire to. And it doesn't preclude or keep a group of businesses from coming in and asking the city to include their block. And here's the on-street parking stall parklet that we've talked about. We've tried to include specific text that talks about that, and that is also similar to the sidewalk dining. You have to has to be ADA accessible, has to be free of obstructions. You have to be licensed to serve alcohol. If you're going to do that, you have to have a lease with the city. You have to provide, proper insurance, those types of things. And it has to be an area that's contained within some type of physical barrier. So that's a lot in a very short amount of time. Does the commission have any questions of staff that I can answer?
Any questions to staff?
I had one minor question. Most of the parking downtown is angle parking. So how are they going to square off? All the examples you had were very rectilinear, and I just wondered how they're going to set those things up.
So when you as a restaurant owner would apply and sign the lease, you would basically be designating how many stalls you want to use, and then have to show on a site plan how you're going to do that. So we're trying to leave some flexibility in the hands of business owners and not be too strict about how they do some of this. We know there's obviously some handicap stalls and things like that we have to keep in mind. So we're trying to keep this as flexible as possible. And again, that's where that site plan comes in. They can show us how they plan to do that. And it may not be a case of where they can totally square things off. With the angle parking, they may have to just work with the stalls as they are.
Any other questions?
Yes, Mike, I have a question. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
My question would be, has the permitting process been streamlined?
In terms of what we do now with like sidewalk dining?
Right. To reduce the amount of time from concept to implementation, maybe?
We haven't done any that I know of since I've been on staff, but from what I read the ordinance, it seems like it can go fairly quickly. The biggest hurdle will be having the insurance and the site plan and knowing exactly how you're going to do that, use that space and what material, how you're going to block it off, things like that. And then the time the business owner would need to do that. I think we could probably turn a permit around fairly quickly if we have a good site plan and the insurance is in place and they have a lease signed.
Okay, thanks.
So if, I know that, I think it's a great idea, but I know there are times even while we're shut down with COVID that you go downtown and parking is very limited during the day on weekdays. I'm assuming that there's some kind of study done to determine how many of these we can allow. Is that right?
Okay. So we have not done a full-blown parking study to try and determine what a limit would be.
Mhm.
The last parking study done that included the downtown area was a few years ago. I believe it was well over 5. Some of that data might still be active and applicable that we can go back to. But in terms of an analysis in this case, no, we did not. I think it's one of those we're going to have to just watch and see how many businesses really want to do this. I know Oklahoma City has opened this possibility up in the last 30 days. They in the downtown area, and not to my knowledge, according to at least the last news report I heard, there were no takers. So do I think that might be different here? Quite possibly. How much? I can't say with any certainty.
Will it be like for a limited time? Let's say in 18 months, COVID is gone, everything's back to fill the restaurants. Will this be something that expires within a particular amount of time?
Right. So the initial trial run that we put in the ordinance in the text amendment was till the end of the calendar year, with the idea that this can be extended by council if need be, or if desired. We wanted to see what a trial run would look like and if anybody would be interested. And the idea about going to the end of the calendar year would mean you would get through all of the home football games. You would get through homecoming time. You would get through the holiday season. And so that gives businesses in these blocks the utmost flexibility possible to do as they think might help their business best.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Under this ordinance, as I understand it, they could have set this up for weekend only and then open up the parking spaces during the week. Is a
If that's
possibility. If that
yes,
works
if
best
they-
for the business.
Correct. And if they wanted to do that, we would just have them stipulate that in their application and their permit.
So if there's a major event like a football game, you may want to do that and have that additional seating. And then during the week, you want that parking space in front of you to get more people in. Might be a situation. This allows this.
Correct. It would. And if you look at, for example, in Washington, if multiple businesses wanted there to rope off part of the street, they could do that and still have traffic flow. Say, for example, on Saturday, if they wanted to have their permit start on Friday afternoon, have it run Friday afternoon, Friday night, Saturday night, and then Sunday it would open completely back up. That's something they can stipulate as well.
Any other questions of any counselor, commissioner? Hearing none, let me open up the public hearing. Is there anybody that'd like to speak on this particular item? Is there anybody that would like to speak on this particular item? Not seeing or hearing anyone, I will close the public hearing. And staff, why don't you go over the alternatives?
Certainly. So this will work for me. Currently, the findings that we submit in the staff report are that the current overlay is very specific to a geographical area and is only in force when a business improvement district is in force for that area. It does not include language like this to allow this type of accessory use, although it has something similar for sidewalk dining. So a text amendment would be in order to provide that opportunity and establish that type of accessory use. And it's in a manner similar to what's done now for sidewalk dining. So it's a process very similar and known to city staff. With that in mind, you can, as far as alternatives, you can accept the findings and you can recommend council approve the text amendment as we've presented. You can find that it's appropriate for the special purpose overlay district if there are particular amendments to what's proposed, and you can recommend approval based on those conditions. If you find that additional information or discussion is needed, you can table it to a future planning commission meeting with a date certain. But if you also find finally that the text is not in order and not needed, you can recommend city council does not approve the request. Any questions about the findings or alternatives we can answer?
Hearing no questions, is there commission discussion or a motion?
Mr. Rickelman, you're muted.
I move we accept the findings and approve and send to the city council.
And I second that motion.
Motion has been made and second. Let me call for the vote. Yes.
Mr. Rickelman,
Yes.
Mr. Shanahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Jerome,
The
Muted.
motion passes.
Sorry about that. I said yes. I'm sorry.
sorry, Mr. Allred.
Yes.
Everybody voted yes. Item 3A passes. Let me take item 4A. Special meeting summary of July 21st, 2020. Are there any corrections and or do I hear a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the summary.
Second.
Motion and a second of summary of July 21st, 2020. Let me call for the vote.
Mr. Buchert,
Yes.
Mr. Rickelman,
Yes.
Mr. Shanahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Jerome,
Yes.
Mr. Allred.
Yes.
Sorry about that. So item 4B, re-presentation of special meeting summary of July 7th, 2020 with staff correction. Do I hear any other corrections and or a motion for that?
I move that we accept the representation of the summary.
Second.
Oh, sorry.
A motion and a second. Let me call for the vote.
Mr. Buchert,
Yes.
Mr. Rickelman,
Yes.
Mr. Shanahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Jerome,
Yes.
Mr. Allred.
Yes.
Item 5A, next planning commission meeting is August 18th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. Let me call for the vote.
Mr. Buchert,
Yes.
Mr. Shanahan,
Yes.
Mr. Rickelman,
Yes.
Mrs. Jerome,
Yes.
Mr. Allred.
Yes.
Thank you all for your participation, and we're adjourned. Thank you.